Jackson.
Good morning, Black Feminist family. How are we doing today? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. We're awake, we're together, we can breathe a little better. I'm so honored to be here. My name is Rob Malika Imhotep, and I'm a member of the BFF board. To learn more about our board, there's a little meet and greet that you can find in your Hoover app this evening. So, I just wanted to start by acknowledging how sacred it is that we get to be together today. Through it all, right? Through climate crisis, which we got a little taste of yesterday, through the converging pandemics, and all the other aches that we may be individually carrying from our home communities and our personal lives. And I just wanted to invite us to take a minute to soak it in, that we are here together right now. So just look around, look your neighbors in their face, smile beneath your mask, and just show some appreciation. And then I wanted to utilize the technology that was called in by one of our North Star honorees, Alexis Pauline Gumbs. Have y'all heard of the Black Feminist Breathing Chorus? Right. So we were talking about Harriet Tubman last night and Paris's beautiful welcome and how she woke up declaring before the end of the Civil War, my people are free. So I wonder if we might today on this Get Free morning make that declaration together. So before we get started, let's just ground, take a moment to feel your feet beneath you or the chair beneath your bottom, whatever's holding you up. Take a moment to breathe deeply. Fill up your lungs, fill up your belly. Exhale. And then we'll say together, maybe 3 times, my people are free. Does that sound good? All right, I'm gonna count us in. 1, 2, 3. My people are free. A little louder. My people are free. One more time. My people are free. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So before we get started on our incredible plenary, Black Feminist Possibility, and with our amazing lineup of folks I'm so excited to hear from, whose content I've been informed by for a long, long time, we're gonna welcome you in a couple Black feminist ways. We'll have a land acknowledgement, a libation by Mama Zola. We'll have a singing together, a collective singing of the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And I'll also go over some housekeeping to keep us all grounded together. So in the tradition of our ancestors, here at the foot of the stage, we have an altar that honors our ancestors and defends our dead. There is also info on the slide, not yet, but there will be, about BFF's practice of altar building. And some of you may have seen throughout the years there have been several Defend Black Women altar building toolkits that BFF has circulated that have encouraged nationwide acts of altar building. I've seen beautiful ones in Atlanta, in Oakland, and some of you all may have actually participated. So if you want to get involved or utilize that technology in your own neighborhoods, you can use that QR code. So now, our land acknowledgement. At Black Feminist Future, we center our work in the legacy of Black women, girls, and gender-expansive people. As we hold Get Free in the host city of Baltimore, we honor the legacy of Black people, enslaved and free, whose labor built the economy of this port city. As agriculturists who tended the cash crop of tobacco, to shipbuilders, domestics, and beyond, to also being one of the largest free Black communities in the U.S. Black people have made Baltimore possible. We also acknowledge the legacy of indigenous people, the first peoples and stewards of this land. A land acknowledgement is not about being performative and more about being in active, right relationship with the land and the First Nation people to which the land belongs. We understand that indigenous peoples are dispossessed of their relationships with land by settler colonialists. The land we are on is unceded, meaning it has never been sold or handed over and should be understood as occupied land and territory. This statement intends to bring attention to the indigenous people who are and or once local to the lands that settler colonists and other colonial institutions currently occupy. Before the first Europeans arrived on Maryland's shores, the land was inhabited by dozens of thriving indigenous tribes, as Maryland was an important crossroads along the Atlantic coast. So you see, what becomes a port city is already a powerful ground for transportation, for communication, for mutual community and building. These tribal names include the Assateague, Choptank, Piscataway, Nanticoke, Susquehanna, and Powhatan. These tribes were all native inhabitants of what would later become named Maryland. We stand in solidarity with indigenous people all over the world who are demanding land back and understand the vital importance of indigenous sovereignty to our collective liberation. If you'd like to learn more about indigenous communities in Baltimore, including going on some walking tours of this very land, you can visit baltimorereservation.com. And also, I would encourage all of us in here to get familiar with the First Nations people of our own particular territories that we stake claim to, or call home, rather, and figure out ways to be in right relationship. I know for folks in the Bay Area, the Segurite Land Trust invites folks to play the Shumi land tax, to actively give back to the indigenous peoples who are working to repossess their sacred lands. And I'm sure that where each and every one of us come from, there are indigenous folks working actively to advance the campaign of land back and to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. So now we'd like to move into some grounding ritual. And I'd like to invite Mama Zola to the stage to offer a libation.
Good morning, family. We're going to pour libation, and libation is going to bring all the energy in. I'm going to be praying, but please join me and pray with me so that this event will continue to be the wonderful event that it is. I'm also going to call in ancestors. They travel with you so that they can be with you, so that they can uplift everything that's going on here, not just here at the Marriott. I want it to spread throughout Baltimore. I want everybody to know that you all were here. Olodumare Allah Jehovah Jah, most gracious, most merciful Heavenly Father, giving you thanks and praises for this day, giving you thanks and praises for this opportunity of your favor, Father God, for blessing this spot of ground, for this libation, Father God, that we are pouring in honor of you, in honor of our deities, in honor of all light angels, all angelic angels, all light keepers, and light in honor of all things good. Asking that you continue to bless this space. Did you bless us with prosperity and abundance? Did you bless us with everything, the desires of our heart? We have not because we ask not. And we are asking now, Father God, that you rain down a rainpower, overflow, Father God, that we will be able to share with others, continue to strengthen us, continue to guide us. Make this gin that's being poured, that this gin represent the spirits of the world, that it will cleanse, that it will uplift, that it will bring forth all that is good and all that is honored and blessed by you. Father God, I bring forth water, Ami Tutu, the purest element in the world, Father God, and I'm bringing this and I'm calling out the ancestors. I'm calling out all ancestors of every, calling my ancestors from the Evans, the Williams, the Montague, the Bonds, the Moore, the Francis, all ancestors. Call out your ancestors as I pour. Continue to bring the ancestors in every corner of this room and every space in Baltimore, that they will rise up, that they will continue to walk with us, they will continue to show us the things that we need to see. They will guide us, Father God. They are in a great place. They are back to their original form. Let us be able to acknowledge them at all times and every day that we do. Let us be able to pour libation in our homes, Father God, that this is a ritual and a ceremony that our ancestors did on a daily basis. Continue to strengthen us. Continue to make people aware what this water represents, what this libation represents. Bless the presenters and the organizers of this event. Bless them in a way, Father God, that they will continue to manifest the things that are of your will. Guide them, whisper in their ear, show them miracles that they just will be in awe about. Bring down and rain down all ancestors, all ancestor energy. And I say, Ashe, Ashe. Asheo.
Income on my outfit. I don't text quick, cause I ain't thirsty. These bitches mad, they wanna hurt me. I'm a hot girl, I do hot shit. Spanish income on my outfit. I don't
Ashe, okay? Are y'all here? Are y'all feeling that? Do y'all feel all our folks who just were welcomed into this space with us? Do y'all feel supported? Do y'all feel held? And I'm sure it'll only get deeper and deeper and thicker as our saints continue to roll in as we're gathered here today. Let's see. Thank you dearly, Mama Zola. We are honored to have you as our spiritual attendant. And now, if you are able, we invite you to stand for a singing of the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Now, we're going to have a video by our beloved Shari L. But as you all know, this is something we lift our voices together to do. So, clear your pipes. Get ready. Do your warm-ups. All of that. I don't know how many verses it's going to be, so just prepare. At least the first one.
sing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory has won.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Shari L. Thank you, y'all. Y'all sounded beautiful. You looked good. I could see the praise hands, everything. We did that together. Thank you. Okay, so now to the housekeeping part, you know. We're here, we done did all our Black rituals, and now we're gonna go over some basics. Some additional helpful information. We have some group agreements, and you can see them on these large green posters, one that's in the back of the room. There are some in the hallways and throughout the space. And I'm just gonna run through them briefly, but the full breakdown of each of these agreements is on these posters. Be COVID considerate. Mask up, because who keeps us safe? Who keeps us safe? Exactly. So we ask that as you move throughout this conference, unless you are actively eating and drinking or speaking, I guess, wear a mask. Thank you. Disrupt BS and squad up for our community. If you see something that ain't quite right, let the people know. Intervene, interrupt. Don't be afraid to hit them with a "you okay, Sim?" to make sure that we're all here together and experiencing this experience to our fullest extent with comfort and ease. Ask, don't assume. Put some respect on people's pronouns, names, and identities. Be mindful. Yes, we could clap for that. We could clap for that. Be mindful of your words as we speak, as we engage with each other. Know that conflict can grow us, and we are in a commitment to honoring boundaries. So as we move through these workshops, there might be times where we don't all agree, and that is beautiful. That space for us to deepen our practice and our politics. And while we're doing that, we're going to be sure to honor each other's boundaries as we engage in these sometimes difficult conversations. Find strengths in our differences. So again, as we move through this space and things come up or you confronted with something that might just be on the edges of your comprehension, recognize that as a through line to strength, not weakness, not something you need to correct or be defensive against. It's part of what we're here for. And allow ourselves and practice the grace to transform. So know throughout all those differences, throughout all those tense moments or beautiful moments, we are allowing ourselves the grace to be transformed. And now I'm thinking of the mandate issue by Mary Hooks, right? To be transformed in the service of our work here together. So those are our community guidelines. Again, you could be reminded of them on these posters in the back and around the space. If you have not already done so, be sure to download the Hoover app. That's where you can get all your information, updates, reminders. You can find out where your workshop sessions are going to be. You can get a taste of what all is to offer. So download the Hoover app. On the Hoover app, there's a virtual help desk that may help you troubleshoot questions, because it might be hard to get a hold of a staff person. Today, I believe staff are wearing green shirts like this one. Volunteers are wearing yellow. But if you can't get a hold of somebody in the flesh, you can always ask questions via that virtual help desk in the Hoover app. COVID testing hours are, and it doesn't say the hours, but I believe that there's COVID testing until 12 today for PCR testing if you haven't already done so. And self-test schedule, which I guess means is the reminder that every morning before we leave our hotel, we're supposed to be taking those rapid antigen tests and uploading them through the Safe portal. Again, because who keeps us safe? Right, so we're going to do our work, we're going to make sure we're monitoring, we're self-monitoring, and we're going to upload that information so that we're all good here. We also have lanyards in a section for those who would not like to be photographed, and I believe that's over in that area. So now that we've gotten through our kind of procedural logistics, and I hope we're all feeling like we understood and we're clear about those things, I'd like to welcome the stage our founder and ED, Paris Hatcher, to offer a welcome on behalf of Black Feminist Future.
All right, good morning, everybody. Yes, I heard y'all singing. Y'all are amazing. Ra, thank you for being the perfect MC this morning. I just want to send my gratitude, my appreciation, and a warm welcome from Black Feminist Future to each one of you. It is with joy that we receive you. We really want each of you to have an incredible experience. I want to see what you have been invited into. Everything has been intentionally designed with you in mind. So we're really excited to have you here in Baltimore, getting free together. Please, our staff, as Rob mentioned, we have on these shirts today. Feel free to reach out, and it doesn't have to be like something went wrong. You can also tell people they're doing a great job. So let's give a shout out to the BFF team. Give it up. Our board, our volunteers. Again, a warm, warm welcome. 9 years ago, Black Feminist Future was founded, and here we are. And there's going to be over 400 of you here this weekend, right? We have people that are virtually joining. We have a packed weekend. There's a member event tonight. So if you aren't a member, you might want to sign up to join our karaoke kickoff celebration this evening. And again, I'm so glad you're here. Let's get free, y'all.
Thank you, Paris, for welcoming us in on behalf of our wonderful host organization, Black Feminist Future. Because this gathering today is truly magic, we have an incredible offering from Adrienne Marie Brown, a Black feminist spell cast especially for Get Free in each of us. Now, I know some of y'all may be well familiar with Adrienne Marie Brown, but I'm going to read a bio just to make sure we're all on the same page. Adrienne Marie Brown grows healing ideas in public through her writing, which includes short and long-form fiction, nonfiction, spells, tarot decks, and poetry. Her music, which includes songwriting, singing, and an upcoming immersive musical ritual. And her podcast, including How to Survive the End of the World, Octavia's Parables, and the Emergent Strategy podcast. Adrienne has nurtured emergent strategy, pleasure activism, radical imagination, and transformative justice as ideas, frameworks, networks, and practices for transformation. Her work is informed by 25 years of social and environmental justice facilitation, primarily supporting Black liberation. Her path of teaching semantics, her love of Octavia E. Butler and visionary fiction, and her work as a doula. She is the author, editor of several published texts, including Emergent Strategy, Changing Worlds, Pleasure Activism. So one time for Adrienne Marie Brown, who'll be joining us virtually. Can we get some volume?
We have come together to get free, and I wanted to offer up a spell for this freedom work, this untying, unbinding, reimagining, and remembering our essential freedom work. This spell needs your body. So in whatever ways bring you the most peace, notice that your body made it here. Your body made it to now. Your whole interconnected lineage has made it this far. You can place your hands on your body, or you can just bring your attention inward for this. But we want to first offer gratitude to the land that is our bodies, the land of us. So offer gratitude to the path from the beginning of all space and time, to the formation of the land and the miracle of the water, to the balancing of the air so that we can breathe, and the righteousness of fire so that we can burn and change, to the beginning of our species, to the beginning of our sentience, to the first experience of love, to the first experience of Black love, to the first lonely moves of taking a stand, to those who never believed their oppressors, to those who created a sisterhood out of glances, seeds, quilts, braids, and whispers, to those who realized how it all pieced together and could never be torn apart, and what the freedom of Black women would mean in a system precariously balanced along our spines and through our wombs. And to those who said we actually cannot pull our many selves apart, and we need to envision futures that are thick with all that we actually are. And to those who realized we were caught inside of constructs built by those who wanted us to be so small and easily controlled, and who are now working in the realm of questioning everything to remind us Black feminisms are fluid and dynamic. Black feminisms are trans and cis and non-binary and straight and dyke and femme and masc and stud and soft and strong and ancestral and infantile. And the most important thing is that we remember we all exist already. Harriet saw our freedom. She said, my people are free. Present tense. Black feminisms sees what others deem aspirational and talks about how we already realize it. We weave the future from our dreams into the present. We've always been fractal, meaning we've always been these small parts of a pattern with maps of the whole system in our palms. We have always created changes by turning the soil, by returning to the dirt. Right now, we gotta root with each other enough that we can easily dance in these changes, easily move with what's coming, easily release systems that hate us, easily build systems that love us, easily build systems that allow us to love ourselves and each other, to be accountable to ourselves and each other. Right now, we need Black feminisms to ground us in a future where our people can believe in and practice their freedom with each other. Ask everyone you meet right now, this weekend, this whole gathering, ask people to sing you their freedom song, to tell you their freedom spell, to share with you, what is it that you're moving towards? What are you longing for? Let me know. The feminisms, add that S. It's not just your path. It's not just my path. It's something between us and beyond us. We want to spin new worlds, right, while we organize. So it's always one and the other, one and the other. We have to do both at the same time. But we're doing that. Black feminisms are writing novels and plays and musicals and albums and designing clothing and trash talking on basketball courts and running for office and getting expelled from office and reclaiming our time, honey, and raising all the babies, all of them, and forming cooperatives and coaxing food from the soil and dominating your news feeds with the analysis to help you understand what is going on right now, and helping us understand when to rage and when to fight and when to grieve and when to rest and when to take over everything. We are each other's portals to freedom. We are how we get free, especially when we remind each other that we are free. We are amongst the freest people to ever live. We're helping everyone catch up. We're helping everyone practice into this freedom. So look around at who you are here with, who you can see, even if it means looking in the closest mirror, and love that Black feminist. Love that Black feminist right into the future. I love you.
Love that Black feminist right into the future. Wow, what a blessing, what an invocation. At this time, well, I don't know if we're ready. Are we ready for this plenary? Are we ready for these visions of possibility? Are we ready to explore how Black feminism gets us free? Y'all don't sound too ready to me. I need a little bit more convincing. There we go. Thank you, thank you. So at this time, in the wake of that spell, with all that good Black feminist love covering us, I'd like to invite our panelists for Black Feminism Gets Us Free, Visions of Black Possibility, to join us here on the stage. Welcome. Clap for our folks, clap for our folks. So before I make way for these powerhouses of Black feminist ingenuity to take over and bring us in, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this morning's plenary, Dr. Savannah Shange. Trying to figure out where to stand to give you your propers. Savannah Shange is a Black queer feminist scholar and educator. She is currently Associate Professor of Anthropology at UC Santa Cruz, where she also serves as principal faculty in critical race and ethnic studies. She earned a PhD in Africana Studies and Education from the University of Pennsylvania, a MAT from Tufts University, and a BFA in Experimental Theater from Tisch School of the Arts.
We got work to do. You
No,
get paid.
I gotta let the people know, okay?
Listen.
How was we gonna know all that about you? Theater.
SavannahShange.com. Thank you very much. Shout out
All
to
right.
Ramalika.
All right,
Shout out to Ramalika.
I'll let it
'Cause
go.
Listen,
But it's some books too, y'all. It's some
Listen.
books.
It's some long bios
Listen.
up here. Let's just.
we got an intro for the intro for the intro, okay? And so, given that I can't even tell you how elated I am to be on the stage with these incredible people. They have given me explicit instructions to cut the bios.
Please.
So please do know the shorter the bio, the doper the person, okay? Starting with Mariam Kava. So now, the bio should be, one more time for MK. Not just an organizer, not just an educator, an entire librarian, okay, and PIC abolitionist. PIC is a prison industrial complex. Yes, it is, yes, it is. But it will soon no longer be. MK is active in movements for racial, gender, and transformative justice. I'm again shortening the bio, but special shout out to two of my favorite books of hers. We do this till we free us and pick up Fumbling Towards Repair. You can actually use it tomorrow. It's incredible. Next up, we have Nikki Kendall. Sorry, I'm going in the order of the, yeah, okay.
I wrote some stuff. It's over.
What kind of feminism? Come on, tell the people. Mickey Kendall, among all of the other things, is a writer, diversity consultant, and occasional feminist. Get into it. Who talks a lot about intersectionality, policing, gender, sexual assault, other current events. The list of where you can find her writing is as long as this page. She said Black girls gotta write themselves into history, and she meant it. Next up, we got Imani Barbarin. Listen. Thank you. That's right. Imani Barbarin is a disability rights and inclusion activist and speaker who uses her voice and social media platforms to create conversations engaging the disability community. Listen, holla if you follow Imani. If you ain't following Imani, who are you following? That's the question. Next, Raquel. Okay, I'm not gonna curse. I was about to hit a curse in the middle of your name. Raquel M.F. Willis in the building. Award-winning activist, author, media strategist, straight up co-founder of Transgender Week of Visibility in Action. Come on. Has held all the positions, executive editor of Out, national organizer for the TLC. Also, her debut memoir, The Risk It Takes to Bloom, will be out in October. We hype. It don't say get the pre-order, but get the pre-order. So that having been said, in addition to my gratitude for us on stage, I just want to also thank you for all the decades of work that you have put in to getting us free. And for those of us gathered here today, we know why we're here, right? We're galvanized by a shared commitment to freedom, and even a shared vision of what that freedom might look like. Ramalika, where you at? You led us in that beautiful offering of, my people are free. Raise your hand if you could taste the freedom when you said that. Yes. We know so much about that sensation of freedom. We can be so invested in the free part, but we're here to get free. And I feel like we don't always know as much about the getting part, right? And that's where our freedom dreams can start to butt up against each other. Okay, we all want to be free, but can we be on the same page about how? And if we're not on the same page, can we get literate in each other's struggles? Can we build a library of strategies to make something like a livable world? Because the stakes are too high for us just to be proclaiming ourselves as abolitionists or listing a set of feminist values on our .org website, right? And every single person, each one of you on the stage has crafted a different possibility model of what it means to practice Black feminisms. And that's day in and day out. When it's not cute, when it's mucky, when it's boring, right? And I'm really hoping that we can spend the next 45 minutes to be in that dirt together, right? And see what might sprout up between us. Does that sound all right? All right. This sounds really loud to me. Is this loud to y'all? Okay, listen, I'm just going to do that. Just as a reminder, listen, we don't need photographs all the time, okay? Everybody don't always want to be in a photograph, so we're inviting this to be a listening, writing down, tweeting with words and not with photographs panel. First question. So 50 years ago, there was the National Black Feminist Organization convening in 1973, right? And by some people's measures, this is the first time there's been this kind of national gathering of Black feminists in the US. And yet, since then, right? But there's still folks in our communities who feel uncomfortable with the idea of Black feminism as a practice. Have you met them? It's still new, right? And so I'm wondering if each of you can talk about what is Black feminism, and more importantly, what work does it do in the world? What does it open? What does it make possible for you?
Okay. Go for it. So I wrote Hood Feminism, right? And I got criticized a lot because of a hashtag, Solidarity is for White Women, and it made some people in their feelings, including some of your favorite 80s white actors. It was great. Here's the thing. I am a very confrontational version of feminism, right? I'm a girl from the south side of Chicago. I'm not a girl from Naperville. I'm not a girl from Evanston. I was born at Cook County Hospital, they called John Stroger, They turned it into hotels now, which is a weird moment in gentrification. But the thing is, I believe that sometimes the only way we're going to get free is to knuckle up and fight. And sometimes freedom can feel very scary for people who have been benefiting from oppression. And I don't just mean white people. There are black men in this audience who felt that cold chill go up the back of your neck. You should. Don't worry though. There are middle-class suburban black feminists who felt that cold chill go up the back of your neck. You should feel, right? The thing is, the whole reason the book is called Hood Feminism, the whole reason I talk about that lived, day-to-day, boring, mundane feminism, what doesn't get you on a television screen and doesn't get you attention, is because that is the feminism that makes everything else possible. The woman who makes sure that the kids eat, the person who goes to that boring-ass school board meeting, the person who is always in their alderman or whatever your local name is office, driving them around the bend, the person who is making sure that the dope boys know to leave those babies alone, right? The person who was always saying, let's get these kids jobs, let's get these kids educated, let's get these kids fed, let's get some health care in the community, who is going to be called often too loud, too noisy, too whatever, too aggressive. That is feminism. This is not the only black feminism, but I think if we found ourselves in a place where we said everybody gets to be fed and educated and access health care and housed, we would already be in a much better place. And then we could have all those class stratification conversations that follow. But if everybody at base has all of their needs met, everything gets better immediately. But it makes people who benefit from selling safety, from selling at a profit, food, healthcare, whatever, uncomfortable. It makes people who know that the only way they could get a partner is by earning more than her, by being the person who offers to take care of the kids or pay the bills, uncomfortable. Because if she has everything she needs and you're not even likable or nice to her, then what does she want with you? Why would she submit to pay 50-50 and have to do 90% of the work? Also, no one has explained to me yet the value of this fabled submission. If you could explain it to me one day, and I don't mean in the BDSM kinky way, I got that. I mean, if you're standing there and expect somebody to pay half, but do 90% of the work at home and submit, what's in it for her, right? So that chill you feel up your backs, that is the voice of feminists like me. Sometimes we set shit on fire, but also we're telling you, you deserve more than the bare minimum, but I want to make sure you at least have a minimum standard to work from.
Yeah, I love that. I'm West Indian, and that's important to me. But thank you. I'm West Indian, and I've been surrounded by feminists my entire life who would never ever say the word. I've been surrounded by women who have taken charge of their entire households, regardless of what the label was behind it. And I remember one time I was in college and I had to write an essay about, to have an essay or interview with somebody who's of a different generation within you. And I chose my mom because she was close by and was helping me with my laundry, but that's neither here nor there. But I said to my mom, you know, I grew up with you being a feminist and you hate the word feminist. And she said, well, yeah, because you look at the feminists that get the attention for being feminists, and we're the ones doing it. We're the ones actually doing the work behind whatever performance art is going on TV, or the market, what have you. We're the backbones of entire communities. We don't get the luxury of calling ourselves feminists because we're too busy doing the feminism that particularly white women love to claim credit for. And so I was like, but you could use the word though, you could use the word. And I just remember being so frustrated because everything I know about my mother is a feminist. Everything that she's done for me is feminism. Even the fact that I was diagnosed at all is because of Black women and Black mothers of disabled children who face the exact same systemic barriers to diagnosis that my mother did, and ushered her along and said, here's what doctors to go see, here's what questions to ask, here's what information you need, what medications she should be on. It was Black women that ushered me through my very first surgery and recovery, but they would never say the word. And so when I think about feminism, I think about every Black woman, to be honest, because a lot of times it's us regardless of what the title is after our name. It's us regardless in these communities fighting to keep people fed and educated and at peace. But a lot of us would never even say the name. So even if when you go home and you find the feminists that are not feminists, thank them too, because they are as much of a backbone of the feminist community as any of us here.
I don't think there's much more to say after Mickey and Imani, but I would just add, from my perspective, I think there are lots of people who seem to be hostile to the term Black feminism, but practice it nonetheless. So for me, it doesn't matter what you call yourself, it matters what you do. I think that's really, really critically important, and we see this on a regular basis in our communities and outside of our communities as well. But for me, my Black feminism is rooted in abolition, which is a big thing to talk about, and so I won't get deeply into it, but my Black feminism is really interested in dismantling a system of premature death. This is critically important, and also dismantling a system of organized abandonment, as Ruth Wilson Gilmore teaches us, organized abandonment. We are living through that in so many ways. We saw it with the pandemic. We see it with the climate disaster. When the state abandons its people, this is a form of organized abandonment, right? And so my feminism is predicating on wanting to destroy those things and wanting instead to build a life that's focused on livingness at its best, and also a feminism that is focused on true safety, not the carceral safety we are sold on a regular basis as though that is what will keep us safe. It never has, and it will not. So I want that different kind of world, right? And I wonder to myself then, are people who reject Black feminism actually against dismantling a system of premature death? Of course not. They want to dismantle that system too, right? Are people who reject the label of Black feminists actually against or for organized abandonment? No, they're not, right? So we can actually work together because we have some goals in common, even if we don't use the same language towards getting at that. So it's not that important to me what you call yourself. And I would also say what work Black feminism does, I steal from the late great historian Stephanie Camp, who said years ago of Black women's history and Black women's studies that the way that changes us is that it changes how we think.
Okay, sorry. Is that right? Okay, it's better? Okay. So that it changes how we think and it changes what we think. Yes. Right? That Black feminism, Black histories of Black women, you have to think about, for example, if you're a Black woman and you start talking about incarceration, sure, lots of Black women disproportionately locked up in prisons, but even more Black women stuck at home being evicted as a result of the fact that they no longer have resources to be able to live, right? When they're putting out the first people who have to bail people out of prison and jail, putting up the mortgage to the house to get people out. You don't look at Black women's lives and you don't root your understanding of theory and structure and analysis in that, you miss that whole thing. And you focus only here. So Black feminism completely shifts the lens. It forces us to be so much more expansive about how the world operates. So if you don't have that analysis, you really don't have anything. You're not going to be able to resolve the problems that exist. That's why it's important to be a Black feminist, for me to be a Black abolitionist feminist. So I would say those things, yeah.
Wow. This is not Black feminism. This light up here.
Not the robot light.
It was
Can we be careful with the lights so people can have seizures, please?
I felt like I was in Terminator for a second. But y'all laid it all out. I guess what I can share is that as a Black trans woman from the South, from Augusta, Georgia, honey, I found feminism in the women around me who also would never have used that word. I found it in my mom, who carved out space for me to play at her vanity in her makeup out of my dad's eyesight. I found it in my sister, who accepted me as eccentric before she knew I was queer. And you know, when I found the language of feminism, which I think a lot of people in this room can relate to, it was in white academic spaces. So I went to the University of Georgia, PWI, flagship institution in the South, white as hell. I took my first women's studies course, and I was like, this is amazing, and also, where are my people at? Yeah. But then I stuck with it, and then I had, in my critical feminist readings class, this glorious, long-locked, beautiful Black woman, Dr. Nicole Ray, and she exposed me to so much more. And so that was where I found a new dimension around feminism. But I want to add, though, that, you know, our ideologies are not inherently benevolent. And so it's up to us to define them with all of this beautiful value that you're hearing on the stage, and you'll be hearing at this gathering this weekend. Because to be clear, I didn't know any Black trans feminists for a long time. It wasn't until people like Laverne Cox and Janet Mock started speaking up, but y'all, that was like less than 10 years ago. And so I think about all of the Black trans women and folks who have been so foundational to my feminism, who again would probably not use that word, right? Probably didn't have access to that language, just like we often didn't have access to understanding ourselves as transgender or gender expansive, right? But we're still full of worth, full of beauty, full of power. And so I just want to name that, because I think we need, and when I say we, I guess I think all of us, but I'm speaking as a Black trans woman, I need Black cis women to own the beauty of Black feminism and not allow, because there is a contingent of Black TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, to claim Black feminism for themselves, because we know what they're spouting is bullshit. We know what they're spouting is white supremacist indoctrination. Yes. We know what they're spouting is genocidal indoctrination. Yes. And we also know that what they're spouting is coming from a place of looking for validation from folks who will never see you as anything of worth and value. So I want to name that, because I often am talking about those folks, but I want to name that there's so much more beauty in Black feminists who get it, and they deserve more of the share of our attention than those others. So,
I know that's right. So as we continue the conversation, first of all, I really want to lift up this idea that it's not just benevolent, because we all know people who have Black feminist in their bio and are anything but, right? Who have actually no interest in anyone but themselves being free, right? Yes. I also, before we go to the next question, you should have some cards on your table, an index card or two. You got an index, you see index cards? So if you have something on your mind, a question arises, something you want to bring up to the panel, folks will be coming around to get questions in a little bit if something comes up. I also want to just do a little mask check. Snap 2 times if your mask is on. Snap 3 times if your mask is on. I love it. I love it.
Can we also do something about this floodlight situation?
There's a lot of light and echo happening like up here. I was trying to keep it down. It's feeling carceral. It's feeling carceral. It's given, I'm 16 years old and people there's nowhere for me to go because my community has shut down all the youth-friendly spaces, but they want to surveil me.
I mean, I feel like I'm in the principal's office and I'm definitely in trouble right now.
Okay,
Like,
listen. Speaking of being in trouble,
I'm just looking straight ahead.
Speaking of being in trouble, sometimes I feel like we're in trouble because, you know, as much as we have all these visions, we have all these beautiful ways of working together. Raise your hand if you've been in a campaign or a project and it went all the way left. So, you know, it's time to talk about that. Whether it's organizers, healers, practitioners, we hit these obstacles, we hit these roadblocks doing this work. And I want to hear, still the floodlights are really bright still. And so I just want to name that. There's a way. We can just put a piece of paper over it. It doesn't need to be like a technological solution.
Oh, for virtual.
It's for
okay.
virtual.
Okay. We're going to cross our fingers. It's going to be
It's
fine.
all. We're going to cross the fingers. We're going to close our eyes. It's going to be great. The question is, from your perspective, what gets in the way of us getting free?
Feelings. I'm just going to name it. Okay? Often, I am not a joiner. I used to join things. I don't join things anymore. Right? And I'm not a joiner anymore because the need to caretake multiple feelings about very mundane things is beyond. I crossed 40 and my field of fucks is barren. There's nothing there. I can tell you what needs to happen. I can listen when you tell me what needs to happen. I cannot and will not coddle you through your feelings about not being the star of the show, right? I cannot and will not coddle you through your feelings that getting free requires civility, respectability, or, to be blunt, Christianity. Right? Respectability has not saved us. It will not save us. Civility will be the death of us. And the ways that Christianity has been used and misused. And before anybody Christian gets in their feelings, I'm not saying there's no place for Christians. I am saying that if you want to apply the standards of your religion to everybody's freedom, we ain't gonna work out. Because not everybody believes what you believe. Right? So that I think is a lot of it. A lot of ego, a lot of feelings, and then just the sheer mechanics of putting yourself aside to do the work.
Yeah. For me, I think a lot of the issue
The microphone taters.
Okay, all right, we good? All right, cool. For me, in a lot of organizing and feminist spaces, I think one of the biggest issues is ableism. And to be clear, before I start, I do not mean this event here. This is one of the best organized events I've ever seen in terms of accessibility and accommodations and COVID precautions. I literally marveled walking in at just how safe I felt. And just in general, you know, in a lot of spaces with this many Black women and femmes and queer people, I usually feel more comfortable about my safety when it comes to COVID in general. And I think that comes because ableism is kind of like water damage. But for Black women, ableism is water damage in a home in a red line neighborhood. Even when we have the issues, even when we can identify them, there's not always the resources to make space for addressing them, to making sure that they're taken care of. And so we fundamentally, as Black women, as Black femmes and queer people, we realize we don't have as many chances to get it right the first time. But still, there are still some people that believe in this hustle culture mentality, in this, I'm going to use my body as an example of how I am not vulnerable or weak. And that is just setting us up for failure. It's setting us up for harm. Because if we're constantly hustling, what we don't talk often enough about is that we're also disabling ourselves. You cannot work 40, 60, 70, 80 hours a week and expect to walk away after 50 years on the job perfectly fine. You cannot do that. You cannot look at people who are resting and taking time for themselves as lazy, because let's be honest, the way that we view other people and how they interact with their space and take rest and respite and take the time to be kind to themselves is often a reflection of how we treat ourselves. We look at people who are resting and call them lazy. Why? Because they're tired and they took the time to sleep? That should be normal for our society. That should be normal amongst one another. And so a lot of times it's our ableism, but it's also our ableism turned inward, because we are not an infinite resource. You're gonna have to take time and rest, and I don't see a lot of us doing that. I don't see a lot of us taking that time to lay down, to read a book, to journal, to take things that are restorative to us. And I love Audre Lorde's cancer journals because she goes into a little bit about what self-care actually is. And I know it's been commodified and commercialized, and we now think of it as bubble baths and bath salts, not the good kind. But like, we think of it as like these really commercial things that we could take part of, but it really was just setting up boundaries for yourselves and sticking to them, and the painful realization and the constant reevaluation of self and understanding what you need in relation to the space around you. And so when I talk about ableism self-care, it takes understanding who you are inside, what your body's limits are, and actually listening to them. Because if you keep running ragged, there will be nothing left.
Yes, please. I want to pick up on what Imani said, because you can't talk about ableism without talking about the big C as one of the major ways that we can, in this country, in this world, we are unable to get free. It's capitalism. It is capitalism that is at the root of making people into widgets who have to consistently produce and are extracted from, rather than people who can actually just live a life, right? And so we are not, I'm saying this to Black folks, Black capitalism is a fraud. We are not going to get free through Black capitalism. It has been tried and failed. Please go and do some reading about that shit. We aren't gonna get free that way. So you have got to be anti-capitalist if you're a Black feminist, because otherwise we are going to be run into with the foot of capitalism on our necks, as it has been since you know that our ancestors were the chattel that made the capitalist system run. Like, I don't understand how that's not clear to folks. We are not going to get free through capitalism. We are not also going to get free through carcerality and criminalization. Do you know why? Because we are the subject of it. We are the people. In this country in particular, criminalization is like the weather, and it's also like the wind. You don't feel it until it blows, but it's always there, and it will always blow. There will be hurricanes, and we'll see it kind of peak into, but it's constant. It's like the weather. If we are in a position where we are constantly saying that carcerality is how we're going to be, quote, safe and saved, then explain to me how we can be a country with this many people locked up, people consistently policed, surveilled to the nth degree, and every fucking person says they don't feel safe. Explain that to me. It's that the carcerality and the criminalization does not get to the root of the issue, does not get to the root of transforming the violences of that system. So we're not going to get free that way, and we're also not going to get free if we don't shrink the gap between our values and our actions. That's got to be a daily practice for us, shrinking the gap between what we say we believe and what we actually do. These things are often incongruent. You cannot be a Black feminist and be transphobic. Okay? Yes, gatekeep that shit. We are going to gatekeep that shit because it's not possible. Why is it not possible? Because Black feminism resists oppression, yeah? And we fight against domination at our core. That's the tradition of Black feminists I'm part of. I am not part of the tradition of a Black feminist that would then see other people oppressed, put my foot on them so I can feel better about myself and gain more benefits. That's bullshit. So you can just get rid of all of that stuff. It's so easy. It's such a simple definition. Are you going to resist domination and oppression, or are you going to enact it? If you enact it, you aren't feminist. Just like I say this all the time, prison cannot be feminist for that reason. For that reason, because it is the inherent source of all forms of violence. So therefore, how then is that going to free you? Not possible. Impossible. You're anti-rape and pro-prison. Where does so much sexual violence take place? How is that possible? Y'all, please reconcile this. Okay? So these are the things that are keeping us from actually being able to step into more freedom. And if you don't get that straight, you're not going to get anywhere. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
I think it's the right thing. Wow, child, what? I don't even, thank you. I think a lot about, I'm going back to something you were saying, Mickey, about people wanting to be the star. Because I've experienced, and I'm sure people in this room have experienced, your homegirl, your home sib that, like, you was cool with, like you was in the streets with, and then at some point your paths diverge and they're like, oh, I don't fuck with you no more. And some of it can be envy. Some of it is feelings of inadequacy. Some of it, and I think a lot of us, and I put myself on the chopping block too, came into movement trying to fill some void, right? Some feeling of lack, right? And some of that movement can help you navigate, but a lot of that is your own personal work, honey. And so if you are just showing up in the space and saying all the cute stuff, but not actually on a personal level working through your bags of trauma and the things that you have been indoctrinated with that are harming you and eating you alive, then we are not gonna get free. And so we have to be able to hold our own healing, right? We can't outsource all of our healing to everybody else. And I think we've internalized a lot of ideas that we can do that, right? I have one of my best friends, Tony Michelle Williams, phenomenal organizer, healer, everything. And we have a flow, that's my girl, and we've just had so many moments of growth together, which is why she's my homie. And, but she's a healer, right? So I have to check myself when I'm venting to her, because I'm like, I don't want to put you in healer mode. And that's a power that I can hold, is when I can just assess the moment and allow her to just be my friend and not have to be the healer I might need for a particular issue, right? So that it's reciprocal. And another powerful moment we had together back in 2015, we were doing some organizing together with Solutions Not Punishments Collaborative in Atlanta, shout out. She's the ED of, and I came from very privileged as fuck background. Like, let's be clear. I know as a Black trans woman, I often walk into spaces when people are like, you're the lowest of the low. You are the most disenfranchised. And it's like, you putting a lot on me, honey. And I don't want to be that. Who wants to be that, right? But even as a Black trans woman, I've had to acknowledge my own privileges, right? Acknowledge, coming from a family that had higher ed experiences, right? Who were able to evolve alongside my queer and trans journey in a way a lot of my sisters and sibs did not have, right? That kind of access. And also socioeconomic access growing up. So with Tony Michelle, we were out on the stroll. It was my first time on the stroll. If you don't know what the stroll is, of course, it's where our family, engages in sex work, right? And sex work is what? Work, okay, work. But I was there and we were like trying to get like responses to the survey we were working on, because we were trying to come up with a report around how Black, trans, and gender nonconforming folks were being policed in Atlanta. And, you know, a lot of the girls was like, girl, I'm trying to work. Like, what you doing? Get out of the way. And I just, as we were going back to Tony Michelle's car, I was like bawling. It was like my Viola Davis moment minus the snot. And shout out, because that snot be working overtime for our auntie. But it was a moment where I was like, we gotta do something. We gotta get our girls off the street. Like, they could do anything else. You know, I was in this mode that Tony Michelle clocked as saviorism, right? Because I thought I had my fancy degree and all that bullshit, that I had the solution, right? But that was not my role. My role isn't to save anyone, right? My role is to work alongside my people, right? So we can figure out what we need uniquely and individually. But I always carry that moment, and I think that, again, it's an accountability piece, right? We have to constantly be recalibrating ourselves within our movements and seeing what our impact is on the folks around us, and also seeing where our motivations lie. Because there are some self-motivations there that we have to continuously chip away and check. And if we don't do that, we won't get to the liberation that we're seeking.
Woo! Clap it up 3 times. Clap it up for that. And so, I mean, there's a few things. A few things are on my mind. I taught one of your articles in one of my classes the other week, and actually you being able to speak to what it means to come from a family that has that kind of capacity to love and transform what it means to be a Black trans affirming family, and come into that in, you know, not in an easy way, but in their own way, was really incredibly possibility creating for my trans and gender nonconforming students. So I just want to speak in this moment to thank you for the way you've made that accessible. Mother's Love, it's an article in Essence, available on essence.com. You should read it. But I'm hearing these roadblocks, the feelings, the ego, the ableism, capitalism, including Black capitalism, the saviorism, criminalization, and this incredibly, somehow always growing gap between our values and our actions, right? So given that this is what we're facing, as we turn to questions from folks, can you just say as this next generation, these generations of Black feminists are moving forward, what is like one resource that you feel like we're not tapping into enough? Like what's a little something that we could be leaning into more to move through the feelings, the ego, the Black cat? What is the resource that we could be putting into our packs, putting into our fanny pack, putting on the altar to move us through these obstacles?
Okay, it's always me first, I guess.
You're good.
I'm gonna say community, and I don't mean community in the sense that you just know people. I mean actively listening and engaging with your community. I mean actively reaching out and asking. I've been driving Imani crazy because I keep asking if she's good, but I'm from the Midwest, and if you're from the Midwest,
I'm good.
you're right. You know what that means. You know how we do it, right? You need anything, you good, whatever. And that is just how I was raised, right? We speak, we acknowledge people, we reach out to people, right? And a thing you may or may not know, my oldest kid is trans, right? She told us, and we were kind of like, okay, cool. And then we had to have a conversation about her wanting to do things like go to Kentucky without telling her mama. Our conflict is not the conflict you would think. I made that face. I don't care how we're shaping the face or the pronouns, but if you take that face to Kentucky without telling me, I don't care if you think you grown. There was 19 hours of labor involved. You are not that grown. She may at some point reach out to you like, please come get my mama, right? My youngest is on the spectrum, right? And community is how we got through. When you described that, that was it exactly. Okay, community and also possibly some threats. I might be some people's least favorite black mother. They'll be all right. But I say this to say, when all of these things were happening, I always had somebody I could call. I always had someone to turn to, because I've always tried to be someone people could turn to. I've always tried to be present in my community, right? I had to have those relationships, to have those friends, to network, not just to get ahead in business, to get ahead in a career, but to network because I grew up with the grandmother who ran numbers and who knew everybody, right? I couldn't figure out long division. A man named Policy John taught me long division. Don't ask. He also taught me my times tables. Policy, numbers runners can teach you math. But that kind of community, that kind of shared interest in talking to each other and all of these things, right? That is more than getting a job, more than knowing your neighbor. It is being a good neighbor, to quote Mr. Rogers. It is being an active participant in your community, whether things affect you or not, right? Because I am also able to make some of those calls, right? When my kids said, hey, I'm trans, and we said, okay, I'm able to make some of those calls because I have some trans girlfriends who know if you start a thing in the bathroom, whether they fight or not, I fight. I definitely fight, right? When I was making those calls, because my kid is on the spectrum, and if you've ever dealt with Chicago public schools, there's a greater than average chance that at some point you wanted to set an entire building on fire, right? When I'm making those calls, and my aunt is making those calls, we're not calling people who helped us get ahead. We're calling people we broke bread with. We're calling people we had conversations and bake sales and whatever with. We're calling our neighbors. And I think often we forget that your community doesn't have to just look like you, believe like you, do exactly what you do. You can meet people where they are in a lot of ways and then ride from there, right? Because when we don't have community, when we're not the person that can be called, we're also the person who can't make a call. So put that back in your tools, because that is how our ancestors got through what they got through. They always built networks to protect each other, to feed, to save, to clothe, to care for each other.
So I want to double up on community, but from a different perspective, and that's from the disability perspective. And when you mentioned capitalism, I really wanted to make a note. From the 1860s till about 1974, there were public ordinances on the book saying that disabled people were not allowed in public because we disturbed non-disabled people to look at. Around the exact same time was the Industrial Revolution, right? You have a ton of productivity and output, and at the same time, they were institutionalizing disabled people en masse. Institutions were horrific. You could look up documentaries on them. Willowbrook, a lot of these different facilities were devastating to disabled people. A lot of it was human trafficking as well, which we don't want to get into. But when we talk about community, you have to recognize that disabled people have not been in community for almost 200 years. When disabled people, when they started what's called the Protection Advocacy Networks, they promised society that they were going to close down these institutions because of some horrific reporting around institutions. They were like, these are horrible places, we're going to get disabled people back into the community. At the same time, Reagan is completely undermining mental health care, completely eroding public health supports for disabled people, while simultaneously increasing the number of police in neighborhoods. So you have a ton of disabled people, Black and brown disabled people, people have been locked away for centuries, flooding communities, while policing is on the rise. At the current rate, we have 30 to 50% of people killed by police have a disability. About 30 to 40% of people in jails and prisons have a disability. And we do not have public infrastructure for disabled people to live in our own communities. It was not even insured to disabled people until 1999 that we were allowed to go home from the hospital of our own volition. A lot of times, we have this fantasy that, you know, when somebody goes into a hospital after a devastating event, that they go home. No, you go to a nursing home. We have reinvented institutions in completely different ways. We have also thrust people into poverty for needing supports to live in community. If you're somebody who is on Social Security disability, you are not allowed to make more than $2,000 to your name. You're not allowed to get married. For fear of losing your health care, your benefits, and the benefits, by the way, let's be honest, they're not covering every bill. They're barely covering food 9 times out of 10. So when we talk about community, we have to also understand that the spaces in which disabled people are allowed to actually live are very minuscule. And when we talk about communities, particularly in the Black community and disability, a lot of disabled people are often hidden away. And that's not right or wrong. It's a historical response to how our society is designed. But when we talk about community, it has to be inclusive of disabled people. Because like I said, disability and ableism is like water damage. It impacts all of us, even if you cannot see it. So when we talk about community, it is important that we build spaces for disabled people, that we make sure the events and the organizing work is inclusive of disabled people. We have a rate of disability in our community of 25%. It's the second highest only to Indigenous people. And guess what they've been doing to both of us for centuries? That's intentional. So when I talk about community, I beg of you to figure out who is in your community, who needs supports, what those supports look like, but most of all, be imaginative about what accessibility can be. We have this very utilitarian idea of what accessibility is. It's just ASL translation, it's just subtitles, it's just a ramp here and there. But there's so many possibilities about how people can interact with the world. Be imaginative about it, be collaborative about it. If you need help, ask for it. That's the point of this. And so when I ask you to talk about community, when I ask you to think about community, think about us too, because we are a part of you, and we're not going away.
Yeah, in the interest, I guess, of time, so that we can get to questions, I'll be brief, and I will echo what Mickey and what Imani already said about community. That is my thing. I talk about it all the time. I also talk about it, and people get very angry when I say you must know your neighbors. People get really pissed off about that. Trust, people have come up after me on stupid social media for years on that point, but you must. We just, don't take any photos of me if that's okay. We must focus on that. We must focus on knowing people. We just went through a life-shifting 3-year pandemic, and we haven't come away with that basic knowledge and really continue to expand on that. So I want to speak to community in a different sense, but in a related sense to what Mickey and Imani both brought up. The first is, we are currently in an era of deep, resurgent, global fascist movements. Not just in the US, all around the world. In India, Modi. In Germany, the neo-fascists coming back to power. In France, the neo-fascist Le Pen. Go around the entire world. There is a global resurgence of fascism. If we don't know that, we are going to be dead. Because they are eliminationists. They are not accommodationists. They don't want to integrate you. They want to kill you. And this is so important for us to really know this, particularly as Black folks living in the diaspora. We are at risk. We are at risk, everybody. And so right now, we must assess, and we must build up our communities of solidarity. This is critically important. Who is part right now in your local, hyper-local community to building community defense structures? Are you all doing that? Put your hands up if you're doing it. Very few of us are. Very few of us are. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter who wins in the US in 2024. Because the US is not the center of the world, contrary to what everybody believes. We live in a society where people of color are the vast majority people everywhere. But we also live in a country where white folks in particular, and many of their white adjacent people of color, are working together to increase death. Right? And as I said to you before, Black feminism is about rejecting and fighting against premature death. That's our charge. That is Mary Hooks's mandate as well. Yeah? So if we do not build up those communities of solidarity, I mean in a granular way, block by block by block, we are in danger. And I just want to bring that to the fore because I don't think we're having enough of the conversation about that at the very local level. We need to be talking with like Pookie on the block, Jamal, Muhammad. We need to be talking with all our folks about the fact that this is real and this is happening and confirm those solidarity networks. To me, that's just critical. I'm not seeing it enough and I'm concerned about it. And I'm working in my hyper-local level with community defense stuff right now. I've been doing it for years, but really re-emerging that ever since the pandemic. The other thing is, have you all done your pod mapping? Do you know what that is? For those of you who don't know, please Google and go to the Bay Area Transformative Justice Collaborative site. It is an easy tool to use to begin to confirm those solidarity networks I'm talking about. You can do it in a very specific way. Do it with your family first and then build out. Build out. Who are you gonna call when shit goes down? Who will return your call? Have you checked in with those people to see that they agree? You have their consent to put them on your map? There are a lot of people, for example, that turns out I'm on their map. Well, I didn't consent to that. So if you call me, will I return your call? Are you sure about that? And it's a scary thing to have that conversation with people because you're going to hear from some people they can't do it. And then you're going to have your feelings hurt. But better to know now than to find out later on when you're in a pickle that you don't have those people to call. Confirm your networks of solidarity, folks. Do it now. Build up community defense. Do it now. Create small experiments. Try and fail now. So that when the time comes, you have something solid to rely on. To me, that's what we have to do as Black feminists.
Punto, okay? Listen. So we have a lot of questions here, but I did want to, before we turn to our community questions, just really take a moment to honor the incredible, legendary Demita Frazier, who's obviously was supposed to be on this panel and is a guiding light for us. Unfortunately, she actually met with an instance of community violence in her own city this week. She was mugged, and physically she is healing, but she wasn't physically able to make the trip. But we want to lift up her incredible contribution to Black feminism, to Black people, to Black socialism. And we also want to lift up that she is a powerful force who has an ongoing life that we can contribute to through the Demita Frazier Giving Circle. And so on the Hoover link, you'll get a link to be able to contribute to the circle. It's a way to be able to sustain Black feminists across their life cycle. And it's also a possibility model that you might want to create a giving circle for local Black feminists in your own community, right, who have held that up. So please be on the lookout for that. Sending our healing snaps up for Demita. And I want to close with one question. Sadly, we're short on time, but is Gen Z in the building? We got young people in the building? Okay, so we have some young people, and I see the handwriting, okay? This is bona fide. This is not a fake young person, okay? This person said, and I quote, "As a youth, how should we go on to fulfill the goals that y'all have for the world? In other words, what do y'all want to see from the youth, parentheses, Gen Z, close parentheses?"
Hello, youth. How are you? I'm very scared. I'm a millennial, and I get confused a lot for Gen Z. I'm so sorry. But I think one of the things that I don't like the question, not because it's not a good question, it's because I see a lot of Gen Z doing a lot, and there's not a lot of support from the up top, right? Because you're asking us what you should do. What should we do, right? Like, what should we do? We should be supporting you in every facet possible. But in terms of Gen Z's organizing, I feel like a lot of you are really on the ball. To be quite honest, a lot of you are really engaged in community activities and starting at the local level. What I hope for you all, though, is that you don't get burnt out too quickly, right? Because there's a lot of energy because you're young, and there's a lot of movement because you're young, but this is a long game. This is a long task. And so what I hope for you all is that you take time for restorative moments amongst each other, and that you are giving space for joy for one another, because without those, it'll just be a long slog for the rest of your life. And you all, like, I've been very impressed by Gen Z in terms of their accessibility, their desire to be inclusive of disabled, queer, trans people. Yeah, why would you ask us this question? Like, I feel like, what do you need?
I'm gonna go in a different direction.
Go ahead.
Because yes, a significant chunk of Gen Z, you're killing it. But I'm also seeing a significant chunk of Gen Z, and I think we've seen someone this week who decided to cozy up to white supremacy only to realize as a young white trans woman that, oh wait, white supremacy will kill me too, right? So I am going to say to Gen Z, and I am Gen X, right? I am literally old enough to be your mama. I want you to never get too comfortable with the idea that age equals freedom from bigotry. I want you to never invest in the idea that we will outgrow racism, we will outgrow transphobia, we will outgrow ableism, we will outgrow hate. Because unfortunately, right, if you all remember Charlottesville, and Gen X dealt with this too, right? Every time a group of youth is fighting for progress, there is also a group of youth who is fighting against it, right? And I'm not saying that those people are in this room, but I am saying that when you leave this room, I want you to understand that sometimes your allies will be in your age group, and sometimes the people you have to call will be on your nerves because we all mother you, that's fine. But we will fight with you, we will fight for you, right? Your safety cannot be guaranteed based on generations, right? You can definitely say, hey, I need you to get in this. I need to call on the ancestors, the elders, the whoever, but I also want you to understand, just like we say, not all skin folk are kinfolk. Not everybody that is the same age as you wants what's best for you.
I love that. And I just, not everyone of the same gender is tender. See what happened? Okay.
I like it.
A little cheesy, but I echo everything that's been said. And I also want to offer, there's something powerful about being able to tap into a tradition and tap into those goals that exist. But the part of your work is figuring out which goals fit you and which ones don't. Because we are brilliant people, but a lot of what we think and say is also going to be obsolete eventually. And I say that as well, not so much for you, MK, but,
Are you saying that I'm old? Because I am.
No. I would never.
I am.
Seasoned, timeless, I love it. But no, I just, for me as a Black trans woman who really came into my own about 10 years ago, right? Which is a long time in our community, so much so that like I'm 32 and amongst trans folks, I'm like an elder to some people, right? Even some people my age just because of the experience that I've led for however long. But I don't know what's going on. But is it me? Am I the drama? But I just want to offer that you deserve to make your own goals and fight for them as well. And for me, as again, what I was saying before I was interrupted by that weirdness was that as a trans woman who has seen the evolution of how we describe ourselves, even in the last 10 years, right? The rise of my beautiful non-binary family, who is completely valid, no matter what insecure people who are in our community try to make you feel. I know that part of the task is leaving the door wider for generations and transcendents who won't love in the same way that I do, won't look the same way that I do, dress the same way, hopefully don't have to check off the same boxes that I felt like I had to check off. And so I hope that for you. I also want to put a charge out there for our people. I do believe that we need to be moving to, depending on how you want to see it, a gender neutral or a gender full society. And so I know there are a lot of parents in the room. I know that we all have our expectations around what the young people in our lives become, but we need to allow them to have the blank canvas of their lives, and we need to allow them to adorn it how they see fit. And so I'm constantly bothered by, you know, just the way that even some of the most feminist people are very gendered with our children and with our young people. And we're putting baggage onto them that they don't deserve, you know? So I want to name that in light of this video that went viral of the woman who was at the gender reveal party, and it's like, why are you having a fucking gender reveal? First of all, like, I do what you want to do, but like literally wildfires have been caused by people's obsession with gender. So I want to name that we deserve to just have the blank canvas of our lives.
I just want to begin by saying I'm so grateful for all of you and for all your work, and Savannah for your amazing work and your moderation, for all of you for being here. Having to think a lot about the work I've been doing over the many years I've been doing it. I started organizing when I was 14. It's almost 40 years that I've been in this work in some way or another of organizing. And just about a couple weeks ago, a book that Kelly Hayes and I wrote called Let This Radicalize You came out. And we wrote it exactly for young folks today. You are the audience for it for us. And it was my and Kelly's attempt to put on paper some of the lessons we've learned. Some of that is about burnout and being careful and making sure you rest and taking time for yourself. Some of it was about rejecting cynical people. I'm not saying reject critical people. I'm saying reject cynical people. Because cynical people are people who get off in some ways of saying that nothing will change, when in fact everything changes. And we learn from Octavia that everything we touch changes and changes us. That's the only actual truth, is that there will be change. The second is you will die. Right? So that your world will end one day. So you have a question to ask yourself, in my opinion, every day when you wake up as a young person into your adulthood, is to think to yourself, how will I contribute to lessening suffering, my own and others, today? That's it. One question to think on, to journal, to stay with. Because if you spend every day of your life thinking about how you're going to lessen suffering for yourself and for others, you will have lived a good life at the end of your life. You will have done enough so that you've actually contributed to our moving forward as people towards a horizon of liberation and freedom, right? And what happens with horizon is the closer you get, the further it moves from you. Why is that? It's not a bad thing, y'all. It's not a bad thing. It's because when you win something, new contradictions arise.
That's right.
We are never, freedom isn't a destination. It can't be, because we're not going to arrive at freedom land and everything's going to turn out great. Well, in some religions, they tell you that. But that's not actual life. That's not what we're going to get in our lives. We're going to keep moving, keep improving, keep changing, keep failing, keep making mistakes, keep apologizing, getting back again, and doing it over and over and over again. that's what's gonna happen in your life. As a young person, you should know that. And you should know that when you're tired, you should tap out and take a break. That there will be other people who will take over the baton until you are ready to come back. But always think about coming back, because we need you. We need everybody. Not all of us have the answers. Together, we'll figure out some better ones, right? And we'll move forward in that way. So I think to the young folks I see every day that I get to be lucky enough to be in community with, I'm so impressed by what you're doing. Okay? I grew up at a time and was mentored at a time when there was no fucking such thing as healing justice being discussed in any of our movement areas, because they were like, you're sick, maybe take a half an hour and then come back later, right? Like, you did not have that. We did not have language about trans folks. I grew up with trans folks who didn't call themselves trans folks. They called themselves, some of them, transvestites. They had different language for that, right? But there weren't many people out as trans people. I see that now. I see young kids coming into their own. I feel such glee. I'm so grateful, you know? That is a big thing. Disability justice. The people who brought that to our lens. Think about how our lives are being enriched every day by folks coming in and showing us new ways of interacting and being with each other in community. I just end there by saying, shit is bad, okay? It is bad, but it's not inevitably bad. We are going to be able to make a difference. And you being here in this room, somebody got us here. Be the person who gets the next people to the next stage.
I know that's right. Speaking of getting the next people to the next room, some of us have workshops to facilitate, some of us being myself. And also, since we're on the topic of young people, I did want to plug that I know tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., some young people have brought a gift for us in the form of the We Will Remember workshop, Black Youth for Reproductive Freedom. It's at 10 a.m. in Marsha P. Johnson, if you want to keep lifting up the youth and learning from them. And in the meantime, I'm going to pass it on to Ramalika.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing? Can you all, we brought some stuff on the table outside that are free to take, so please take it, because I don't want to bring it back home. So take some free stuff from the table outside. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you all
Thank you.
so much, so much. Let's give it up for our panelists. Thank you all so much.
Remember, when we fight, we win. Don't be afraid to fight.
Thank you all so much.
Text quick, cause I ain't thirsty. These bitches mad, they wanna hurt me.
Okay, thank you all so much. Please head to your workshops. They should be starting in around 5 minutes. And carry these lessons with you to wherever you're off to next. Thank you.
Big Birkin bag, hold 5-6 figures. Stripes on my ass, so he call his pussy Tigger. Fucking on a scamming ass, rich ass nigga.